everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the One of Us podcast. We're so excited that you're here with us today. Today we got a really fun episode. We're going to be doing Agree to Disagree. So essentially we're going to be giving statements, all of us that we've thought of about friendships and faith, and then we're going to be seeing where we fall on the playing field. But what's important is we want to know also where you guys fall on the playing field. So let us know in the comments, but it should be fun to see what our perspectives are on these various topics. So Juan, why don't you start us off with the first one?
All right, guys. So as Crystal said, we're going to do some statements. They're going to be a Christian friendship edition. So some questions pertain just to Christianity in general, and other questions just pertain to friendships. So the first one I have up on queue could be controversial depending how you look at it. But the first statement is the church has a major role in teaching people how to live. All right. So I'm going to give everyone like 5 seconds to kind of formulate what letter they're going to show up on screen. So for those of you just listening, we're going to show either an A for agree, D for disagree, and N for like neutral. We don't really have an opinion on that statement. It's more like eh. So I'm going to count down from 3 and then we're going to show our letter. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Victoria!
Oh, everyone said an A but Victoria. She put an N. Victoria, please explain yourself.
I agree to an extent. I didn't put in for neutrals, though I didn't have an opinion, because I do. I think it does play a role, and I think it is a big factor, but I think the home life is a bigger factor than the church in playing a role.
Okay, so you took this kind of in a different direction. So I would agree both have a major role. The reason why I said agree is because I obviously think faith being taught is the foundation of who we are and our identities and how we live our life. That's why I said A. I didn't think about it in the context of what you're saying, of what person's role is more important, but that's interesting.
What about for those who are like new to the faith?
I see it. Sorry. So I interpreted it as like someone who was raised in the church, because obviously I was raised in the church. So that was my perspective. If someone hasn't been raised in the church and like they're going on their own, I would put an A, because it does have a huge impact. Like I can say now, like if I wasn't taking into account my family and how I grew up, then I'd put A. But because I am taking that into account and how I've seen people walk out of the faith or come back into the faith growing up in the church, that's why I put N.
So I put A, but my A kind of has like an asterisk to it for me. So the statement was that, here, let me read again. It says that church has a major role in teaching people how to live, right? So I think if you're going to a Bible accurate, affirmed theology church, that every day you gather with a congregation, you learn more on how to live. So I would say more the Bible, not necessarily the entirety of the church, but I do believe you shouldn't neglect the congregation, as it says in Hebrews, right?
I have one. Sharing your location with your friends is beneficial. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it's kind of split. 2 of us said agree, 2 of us said neutral.
I don't know. I feel like if something were to happen to me, I mean, Apple can still track with Find My because of like devices, but what are you guys going to do about it? I don't know if I got like kidnapped.
Honey, I would go to LA. If I see you in the middle of the water, I'm going to be like, Daisy, what's going on?
Look, my best friends should have my location, because if you just want to meet up, you don't even have to ask me. But if someone that I'm not really close to has my location and they're stalking me, I do feel a little uncomfortable.
Okay, I have another one for us. Friends should be able to snatch other friends' clothes. 3, 2, 1, go. What? Victoria with the first disagree, Tati and Juan with the neutrals, and Crystal with agree.
My sister is different.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
And I take very few things. I'm talking more so about you, because you'll kidnap and take my stuff and I won't see it for months. I.e., my freaking Nevada hoodie. Let me tell a quick story for our viewers. I have this hoodie I love to wear, and especially in Reno when it was raining, I would wear it all the time. It was raining one day, and I remember I was living with Tati, and I was like, Tati, I can't find my freaking hoodie. I must have lost it somewhere. So I was pretty sad, so I put on a different hoodie. I'm walking on campus, and who do I see? Crystal. And as I get closer, what do I see? Crystal wearing my hoodie. Yeah, no. Absolutely not. The only reason I say it's okay with my sister is because guess what? She lives 2 doors away from me in the same house. Okay? That's what's different. That's why I say disagree.
Listen, I think it's fun. It's part of the game. It's like cat and mouse. You never know what's gonna happen.
I put neutral just because, I mean, a lot of my clothes doesn't fit my friends. If a friend needed help with clothes, I mean, I would give you the shirt off my back, but I don't know. I think it would just be kind of weird. So I would say no.
I'd be nervous that, like, if again, like Juan said, if someone needed it, I'll do it. But I'd be nervous I wouldn't get my clothes back. I think that's the pro of being a different size, is I don't have to get my clothes snatched from y'all.
I have one more that I thought of. It is hard to have long distance friendships. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, interesting. Also a little bit mixed. Tati and I said neutral. Victoria said agree, and Juan said disagree. Okay. I'll say I said neutral because I don't think it's hard necessarily. I just think it's different, and you just have to go about things in a different way.
I put agree that it is hard, not because of like relationship status, but if I want to do something, I can't just text them and be like, hey, show up. No, like I have to, like for Tati, I have to drive to freaking LA in order to show up. Or like even Tati, like I would say like her and I try and watch like little shows together, but sometimes it's hard with our schedules and everything just because we're doing stuff, or it's different. Rather, it's not like, hey, I'm going here, you want to come with, or it's not like I can take that person along with me.
I said neutral because it just depends on, I guess, both parties. Because I feel like sometimes there are relationships that are long distance that you might have to pour into more because you might not be receiving as much. And then I feel like there's some that, I feel like both parties are really good about being intentional. So it just depends on the relationship and the dynamics.
I put disagree, honestly, just because I do think you can have strong friendships, and I wouldn't say it's easy. I just think that it's unique in its own way. That's not the same as it is when you're in the same city or seeing each other every single day. I still think they're both amazing friendships, and it's unique for a season, and hopefully, you guys get reunited. But I would say that it's still relatively, at least on my end, easy to be intentional and loving towards my friends abroad.
I have one. Bubble baths are the best way to relax after a long day. 3, 2, 1. No! I've been betrayed.
Dang, Victoria, the devastation in your voice was too strong.
Because I like baths.
Tati and Juan were big no. I'm neutral, but Vic, I know this is a passion of yours, so why don't you go first?
Okay, first of all, baths are just relaxing. You just get in there, you can turn some lights off, put on some candles, you get some like good smelling scents, and you just like soak. You can read a book, you can just close your eyes. I feel like that's a great way to like de-stress.
Is it a good way? Yes. Is it the best way, or however you phrase the question? No. That's my 2 cents.
Well, the other option is taking a freaking shower. Is that what you want to do?
I take bath showers.
Okay, you're done talking. Tati, Juan, opinions.
Okay, I'll go first, Todd. Basically, this is my thing. It's like 100 plus here in Las Vegas. So when I think of a bubble bath, I think of it being really warm. And the idea of taking a warm bath makes me want to actually die. So I'll have to say no. And also, I feel like after you take a bath, you have to take a shower immediately after. So it just involves a lot of work. So I'm going to say it's a no for me, dog.
Now you pulling the Randy Jackson quote. Honestly, I don't fit in the bathtub in my house, so that's probably a big reason why I don't like baths. I'm too big for the bathtub.
Okay, but what about when you came and took a bath in my tub?
It was okay. Look, I'll tell you my problem. I have a million things going on in my brain, and it is so hard for me to shut off my thoughts that I cannot just sit in one place and be calm because I have so much I'm thinking about. I just don't end up enjoying it. It's hard for me to shut it off. I would prefer going in a jacuzzi though. So
Okay, I can accept that answer. Hey, can I actually be honest? I actually hate jacuzzis.
Hot take right there. Why do you hate jacuzzis?
I'm joking. I don't hate them. I don't know why. They're just like not my favorite sometimes.
Hate is a strong word, Victoria. You need to repent of that language.
Wait, what is
Sorry.
it that you don't like about it?
They're fun for like 2 minutes, but then I just feel like I'm becoming like a boiled chicken. I just don't like it.
To be fair, I only like it when it hits a certain temperature. I hate going in like I like my jacuzzi because like I can go in specific temperatures. But when you like go from like straight up a cold weather to like the hot jacuzzi, I do feel like I'm a burnt chicken nugget for a second. So I like the gradual like warmth heating up because you don't feel it as much.
All right, guys. So we kind of been asking some silly questions here and there, but we're just gonna dial up the hot take slash maybe controversial dial a little up. The next statement we're gonna say or put up is Christians or Christianity has no place in politics. 3, 2, 1, go. You betrayers of worlds.
Why?
All right, so everyone put a D minus your true boy Juan. He put an N.
I don't think that like politics and religion, like, you know, I don't think that we should put politics above religion or anything. But I do think as people who do have the Bible and there are values in the Bible that we have a say in is a blessing in itself. And we should be using our power of like voting to vote for like things in politics that align more with what we believe. That's my hot take on it.
I struggle with this one just a little bit. I do think it is important that politics have like some foundation of good morals and values, and I might be biased in saying that good morals and values come through the word and having a relationship with Christ, which I think is really important and might kind of be like we might kind of be going down a rabbit hole because I know a lot of churches want to talk about politics and stuff, but I feel like that's something that needs to be reserved for outside. I think a lot of churches want to bring politics in and it can kind of become the main focus, and I'm not too fond of that. But as for politics in the outside world, I think it's okay, and I think it would be wise to build a foundation on something that has good morals and values.
Yeah, so I would disagree with that because it obviously does, because your identity, your values, your direction, all of it shapes the way in which you vote and shapes the way in the people that you support. And so I think your faith is a huge part, if not the most important part of the political process in terms of believing individuals, because you have to vote alongside your beliefs, whatever those look like. So I think they do have a huge role, and they can coexist without idolizing that other piece of it as well.
Yeah, like I think a big thing, Juan, is let's say, what if our government said, hey, we want to ban Bibles? Like, I think at that point, we do need to get involved. And again, you know, like Crystal said, the way we vote does reflect of like how we live, you know, if you have, you know, the luxury of voting.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I actually chose neutral mainly because I agree with all the points you're making. The only reason I picked neutral is because sometimes I believe that sometimes people place politics above, I guess, their faith and their walk with Christ. So it's kind of like a fine line. I do think the political process, especially here in the United States, for those who are listening in the United States, you know, God has blessed us with a representative democracy to kind of express our will. And you know, it's like asking ourselves, how does God allow us to be a good steward of that? But that's the main reason why I chose neutral. On the topic of culture and politics, I'm going to just jump over to the next question. It's kind of similar to this one, but it's more of a nuance. Church and Christians need to adapt to the culture to stay relevant today. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, unanimous, neutral across the board. Who wants to go first?
I said neutral for the purpose that I don't want Christians to change who they are and change their morals and values just to fit in with society. But I do think it's important to adapt, that we take what we have and be able to share it with people, each and every day, and being able to reach people, and being in this world but not being of this world. So I think it's important to adapt, but not to change who God is or to change his word to make it more appealing for people.
Yeah, I think maybe because I think of this in a marketing perspective, each generation is targeted a little bit different, but I agree, like, we should never change, the Bible or who God is. Maybe just more the approaches that are taken to meet the newer generations to get them more interested, again, without compromising the important things. We could argue, like, I know that this is a big, conflict in the church is worship and how it seems like a big concert within the older generation and the younger one. That's like a perfect example.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. As long as you stick to the meat and potatoes, you have the content is the same. The way you express it can be different with just an adjusting generation. Going off of that worship thing, I think of like hymns, right? Hymns are beautiful and moving and deep, and I think they're great, but that might not be the best way to reach certain people, and they may not receive that as well as they could other types of music. So expanding our minds to different genres and stuff to worship God, I think, is a great way that the church can just continue to meet people in different spaces with different interests as well, and it still be worship.
Yeah, I chose neutral mainly because kind of like what you guys are all saying, sometimes the culture puts a specific sin issue or a question pertinent to our existence up in the forefront, right? So the way that I kind of explain it sometimes to people is like, I'll talk to some of the older generation at church, having a conversation, and we'll be talking about evangelism. And a lot of the older generation, like maybe, I don't know, past millennials, I don't know if that's boomers or whatever, just like a lot of older individuals, they're still, some of them, stuck in the whole turn or burn phase of evangelism, right? Kind of like telling people like, you need to repent or you're going to burn in hell forever. And, I feel like for a time, perhaps maybe in the 90s, when an image focused culture was so big that played a big role. But I think that, I'll hear people say, I don't even understand what is sin and why committing sin is even bad. So you shouting at someone that they're sinning and they're going to hell, like, it doesn't even create, like, they can't even connect the dots to what you're trying to say to them. So I do think that the church needs to be always aware of what, the people are kind of asking for spiritually. How does God meet those needs?
Yeah, honestly, Juan, you brought a good point, because I was hanging out with someone recently and they were telling me that someone they know is trying to lead them towards Christ, and they were taking it more of a rude approach, which is kind of interesting, because they were like, oh, would you rather go to hell, or like, do you want to go to heaven? And the more I had a conversation with this person, I realized they know absolutely nothing about Christianity. Like, they know nothing. So I explained it to them. They're like, I actually really enjoy the conversation that I had with you over the conversation I had with this other person. So the approach definitely matters. It's just always interesting, because I think we have this horrible assumption that everybody knows about Christianity, but people might not know as much as we think they do. Like, this person didn't even know why Jesus died. They know nothing, obviously, about the Old Testament. So I think it's important to educate and really pray and let the, Spirit lead you in a loving way. Reading scripture, God says, above all else, love one another. So that's my 2 cents on it.
I like it. I like it. All right, moving on to the next one. The next statement is a church in any community can get too big in terms of congregation, church size, church membership, stuff like that. 3, 2, 1, go.
So we got a mixed bag once again. Tati and I said neutral, Juan said disagree, and Vic said agree. Vic, why do you agree?
So you guys had said if a church gets too big, it's bad. That was the question, correct?
That's the statement, yeah.
The statement. I don't think it's bad, but I do think you need to be cautious. I think a church always needs to be growing. And I think a church that's growing means that there are people that are going out and bringing people in. And I think that part's amazing. But I think we need to be careful with churches that get too big, like mega churches and stuff. Not dogging on them. I think they're doing great. But sometimes there's a loss of intentionality, and sometimes people can kind of get lost through the cracks of a church that's so big. It's hard to find that community and that fellowship. And I think that's where the struggle comes in. And I know that there are like small groups and, encouraging small groups and everything. But I'm just saying sometimes it's harder to create that discipleship and creating disciples in a church that is so large. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think churches need to be cautious. So I commend them for being able to preach and to preach the good news so well that it invites people in. It just should encourage people to continue to maintain that intimacy and intentionality as well.
Sounds more like an N answer to me, Victoria. Didn't seem much as an agree. So I'm going to have to demote your D to an N.
Okay.
You mean her A to an N? Because you said D to an N.
Oh, yeah, A to an N, sorry.
Okay, sorry, here. I'll redo it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it depends. I think because when I hear the word church, I just think everyone, like the people. But I think even if you flip it the other way, I think even a too small of a church can also have the same effect because you might not have enough young adults to get connected or people in your age group. So it really depends on the circumstances and how that church is functioning. But obviously, our hope and prayer is that if you are a big church, you're hopefully spreading the good news in the right way, and that you do have a lot of resources for people to get connected and feel very welcomed and find a community.
All right, well, I put D. I disagree with the statement that a church can get too big. I guess bear with me. This is kind of where my reasoning comes from. I think kind of like how the Lord explains in the Bible that his church is like a body, right? As Christ as its head. I think that God in his graciousness has allowed, his word to be structured in whatever you want to call it, church governance or structure of the church, in ways that can really pertain to the way that you feel most connected to Christ. So to kind of unpack all that is what I'm saying is that if you're more of an introverted person who really enjoys the interpersonal connections of one-on-ones, there are churches out there, I believe, that really focus on those endeavors. But I think that doesn't take away for the people who feel very close to God when they're doing more of a community work with their church and brothers and sisters, the ones that we see bigger churches do, right? They feel more connected in God by leading some of those efforts and having the manpower. So I don't believe there's like a cap to how big your church can be. I think it just depends on how it's being stewarded by your pastor, right? I think there's like this two dualities. It's like being super seeker friendly versus being a holy huddle. So I think if you're so seeker friendly that everyone in your church is only obtaining spiritual milk, no one's being challenged, people are kind of just coming into church and they aren't really having a connection with God, but like checking off a box, and the church isn't really trying to push anyone closer to Christ, I think that's a problem. But I would argue that that is as problematic as churches that have maybe like 10 people in their congregation and the last thing on their agenda is evangelizing to the lost people in their community, right? So I think it's kind of a balance of both. And I think that with church attendance, it's just being a good steward with your congregation.
Do you think that being a pastor at a bigger church can cause more issues?
I think, okay, this might be super duper radical statement, but I just think that like, if God placed on your heart to be a pastor, that's beautiful. But I think just like how there's seasons in life, I think every church has specific seasons as well, especially when a church goes through extreme growth. I think that's why when pastors take a sabbatical or they, spend time with the Lord is one of the most important things of what a pastor can do, because you have to continually ask God to empower you by the Holy Spirit to lead, the congregation. I mean, that's honestly could be a podcast topic for another day, just our beliefs on that. But honestly, this question was mega fire. So tell us in the comments below, what do you think about this specific topic? All right, I'm going to read the next statement. Spiritual possession and demonic forces are as prevalent as it is in the Bible today. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, 3 A's. The only person to be neutral on this is Tati. So Tati, please take it away.
I mean, I just think that the battle has already been won by God and Jesus. I do think there's demonic forces, but personally, I don't know if maybe I'm just blind to it, but I don't feel like I see too much crazy things. Like, obviously, like culture and things that are happening, but I don't know.
I said agree because I think the enemy just wants us to think that there's nothing going on, but there is a lot going on. But I think as a generation and a society, we're a lot more distracted or see things and are just like, oh, that's just those weird people over there, or that happening over there, or that just happened because of your circumstances and yada yada. So I do think it's a little bit more hidden. It's not as obvious as maybe as it was in the Bible, but I do think it's at work in even like a larger scale.
Yeah, and I found a Bible verse, Ephesians 6:12, for our struggles not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. So I put agree for the purpose that I think it is. I don't think it looks the same as it probably was back then, but I think it's kind of like that question that Juan asked earlier. I feel like sometimes they do adapt and they come out in different forms. And so I would say that it is very prevalent today as it was back then.
To bring it back to a little bit of a lighthearted note, I love that discussion. I thought that was really good. And we're all very curious to see what your guys' opinions are, if you agree, disagree, or are neutral on some of the statements we said. Feel free to have a discourse in the comments and would love to chime in there as well. But a question that I just thought of was in terms of friendships. So it's a little bit more lighthearted, but it is better for an introverted person to be friends with an introverted person, just as an extroverted person is friends with an extroverted person. That's my statement. Your guys' thoughts. In 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, I said N, but actually I'm changing mine to D because I was confused at the end. Okay, so most of us said D. Tati's the only one that said N. Tati?
I don't really think it leans more towards one or the other. My perspective is if you vibe, you vibe.
That was deep, Tati. Wow. I think you should start your own podcast. Just kidding.
If you vibe, you vibe. Everyone's different. I feel like I can enjoy both being with people that are introverted and extrovert, but it depends on my mood and what I'm up for.
I put disagree because I think if you just are with like-minded people all day, every day, you'll never grow as a person. So I would think if you're an introverted person, obviously have your introverted best friends, but still have, friends that are extroverted and can kind of encourage a different perspective in your life. And if you're extroverted, try to find friends who can slow you down because don't be caca. All right, so that kind of concludes all our statements for today. If you have any agree to disagree statements, why don't you post them below and we'll comment and see if we agree, disagree, or are neutral. And obviously continue the discourse on the comments and on our Discord server. But right now, I'm going to pass it to Hot Take Time with Tati.
This one's basic. I'm just pulling this one out of my brain cells. Coke is better than Pepsi.
Okay.
Vic, please never laugh like that again.
I'm going to say they both suck.
Me too.
I hate Coke and Pepsi.
Okay, what about the parent companies? Like if you were to go to a restaurant and they had either Pepsi Cola or Coca-Cola, like branded stuff, which one would you lean towards more?
Probably Coke, because Coca-Cola owns almost everything.
I would probably say Coke as well, just because, they have Coke has Sprite. They have like Dasani, I think. Their stock is better than Pepsi's, so I'll have to go down with Coke.
In my opinion, this is someone who knows nothing about sodas because I never grew up drinking it and I still pretty much don't, is Coke is like the established older twin and Pepsi is like the younger twin that came out 15 minutes later that is just really trying to be like the older twin really bad, but it's just everyone just vibes with the older twin more. That's kind of how I see both of them and their relationship with one another.
Okay, my last one is celebrities should be transparent with the surgeries that they get.
I don't think they have to be. I mean, it's their personal life if that's what they want to do. But I do think they should be forward, like, don't lie. But if they don't want to answer the question, then they can just be like, I don't want to answer that question. It's my personal life. I can do with it what I want.
Yeah, I would agree. I said I would say that everyone doesn't have to come forward and say everything that they've done, but also you have to understand that as a celebrity or a person in the spotlight, you are a representative to other people and you are influencing other people, and people see you and look up to you in certain ways. And so I do think it would be good on their part to be transparent, especially if they're followed by a younger audience, to be like, hey, don't have such high expectations for your life or your face or your body in this way because this is what I've done. You know, I think that would be helpful to the generations and society as a whole, but obviously they're not forced to.
My hot take around this area is, you know what? If you're doing cosmetic surgery and you're a celebrity, whatever, right? But I would say this: if you're like an influencer for like maybe like a workout channel, or you're like a nutrition blog or something, and you've obviously got work done to put up an image that is fraudulent, I think you probably should come forward. If not, then I think, kind of like to Crystal's point, you might be doing like lasting damage to the younger generation of how they view themselves.
All right, so we have concluded this podcast for today. Thank you guys for listening. If there's any statements or agree, neutral, disagree that you'd like us to answer, then by all means, leave a comment and we'll let you know if we agree or if we disagree. But we love you guys. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you choose to listen. And we will catch you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.